Hey there friends, this video may infuriate a couple of you guys because what I'm about to share with you is not right. It is a political decision that was made to put a man behind bars in a victimless crime. You guys may have been following this story, but I wanted to wait until there was some word on it, and now there is. New York man gets 10-year prison sentence for building guns. You might remember some of the stuff that came out about this case as it was ongoing, more specifically the skank judge that came out during the opening statements. She interrupted the opening statement several times from the defense team. Then she made it a very strict point to instruct the defense that they are not to bring, quote, the Second Amendment into this courtroom, quote unquote, telling them it does not exist here, so you can't argue the Second Amendment. Imagine a judge telling you you cannot bring the Constitution up in this court setting that's based on the Constitution. The whole court system is based upon the rule of law, which starts with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So imagine a judge telling you you cannot cite the very premise that this court system is based on in this court system. Imagine that. Another thing regarding this judge that came up is the defense attorney's team said that during the sentencing hearing, the judge, quote, started off by whining about the fact that she was mocked by people on social media. More on that in a minute. A real quick point of irony about this judge is that she used to serve as the Deputy Commissioner for Regional Affairs and Federal Programs for the New York State Division of Human Rights. So you're telling me that someone whose job it was to uphold people's human rights actually is refusing to acknowledge people's constitutional and human rights. Now, the judge rejected the defense's request that Taylor, the defendant in this case, be given the minimum sentence of 3.5 years. She argued that Taylor knew he was breaking the law and that she did not care about his political views. As this story on Bearing Arms points out, this defendant, who was sentenced to 10 years, is an electrical engineer. This guy is not a criminal on the street. I'd also like to remind you, and Bearing Arms was kind enough to point this out, that this man, who has no prior record, is not a violent person, has a great record at work, good employee, got 10 years when he could have gotten 3.5. The same week, there was a person who pulled a gun out at a convenience store and threatened to kill somebody who got less time than that. I think they got 2 years, maybe 3 years. So you got a violent criminal pulling a gun on somebody in New York, using a gun in the commission of a crime, get 2 or 3 years. You got a man who was convicted of homemade gun making, 3D printing and 80% type construction of a gun, who gets 10 years just to prove a political point. This man is going to Rikers Island, for God's sake. To be clear what he was convicted of, the Brooklyn District Attorney said the authorities recovered 13 weapons from his apartment, including, quote, assault weapons, as they call them, handguns and rifles, prompting his arrest and conviction of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon and other related charges last month. Now, I think it's important that we point this out real quick. This man was not charged with trafficking of guns. He was not charged with disseminating these guns in any kind of way. That was never brought up, never even suggested. So there's no accusation of it because he wasn't doing that. He simply wasn't. This was his own personal collection. His crime was building and possessing firearms without a license. A couple of things that I want to point out. First of all, whenever I did a search for Dexter Taylor, look at how the media is already trying to position this story to make it look like they got some big giant kingpin in the underworld of the gun community. Top stories: Brooklyn man gets 10 years for arsenal of ghost guns, including rifles found at home. Bushwick man gets 10 years for ghost gun arsenal. Bushwick man sentenced to 10 years in prison for illegal possession of ghost guns. From one of those same articles, during a search of his apartment in April 2022, officers found 4 AR-15 style assault weapons, 5 handguns, 4 rifles, and get this, more than 50 rounds of ammo in an unlocked safe and closet. Wait a minute, 50 rounds? I'd lock this guy up for only having 50 rounds. And the anti-gun DA that worked on the case said that ghost guns are a threat to New Yorkers everywhere, and my office is working tirelessly with our partners in law enforcement to stop their proliferation. Today's sentence should send a message to anyone who, like this defendant, would try to evade critically important background checks and registration requirements to manufacture and stockpile these dangerous weapons. Every ghost gun we take off the street is a win for public safety. What an absolute crock, lie, and fabrication of a story. This is a fantasy that this guy created in no less than, 3 sentences here? This is like a comic book read here. Ghost guns are a threat to New Yorkers everywhere. They're not. They're simply not. You cannot say that anything is a threat to anybody because this man, who is not a criminal, was not intending to sell them to anybody. These were in his own private collection. And I'll get more on the fact that this guy knew he was breaking the law in a second. There's a bunch of you white knights out there that want to take up for the judge. Well, he knew what he was doing. He makes all of us gun owners look bad. We'll get back to that in a second. The fact that this man had no intention of giving these guns away, selling these guns, proliferation of these guns, he had no intention of any of that. This was literally his own private collection. That came out in the court system. They even were like, we can't get him on anything else because he ain't trafficking. He's making these for himself. He has no intention of them leaving his house. So these guns, quite literally, were not and were never going to be a threat to New Yorkers or anybody else anywhere. The next sentence is very clear at what this whole mission was. Today's sentence should send a message to anyone who, like this defendant, would try to evade critically important background checks and registration requirements to manufacture and stockpile these dangerous weapons. First of all, this again has nothing to do with background checks. This was this man's own personal stash, if you will. This man could pass a background check. He was the only owner and the only intended owner. So a background check doesn't mean anything. As long as these guns were not going anywhere, they were never in any kind of danger of doing anything and being on the streets. They were literally in this man's home, not even in his car. But this is clear, obvious evidence that this was a political axe to grind, and that's why the not only the charges, but the sentencing also were so strict and so harsh, and they did not cut this man any slack whatsoever. Last sentence, every ghost gun we take off the streets is a win for public safety. Well, apparently you lost in this one because these were not taken off the street. These were, again, never intended to be on the street. So this is all gibberish, and this is all gobbledygook that makes you, guess what? You feel good. They feel good they feel great. Now, granted, they're getting Soros money, so I mean, they're going to get rewarded for this. But their feelings got a little bit of pampering throughout all of this. I did find an online change.org petition to have this judge removed. Obviously, this is never going to happen, but if you do want to sign the petition, I've signed the petition. At least if nothing else, if we're talking about feelings, it does make you feel better that you're supporting this cause. Again, it's not going to go anywhere. These are appointed judges. These are not elected judges. So once you're appointed, you don't go anywhere. So this is likely another token hire, another token appointment for political reasons. So you can best believe that no petition is going to make much difference. Now, let me address all of the people out there who are going to say, hey, he broke the law. He should go to jail for 20 years. He gives us gun guys a bad name. Have you ever been speeding in your vehicle and not gotten caught by law enforcement? Have you ever run a stop sign? I'm not talking about blazing through it. I'm talking, because most people won't do that. I'm talking about easing up to it, not coming to a complete stop and just going through it. Have you ever run a red light when you knew it was red? You might have ignored the fact that it turned red above you, but it was red when you went through that light. Have you ever done that? Oh, I know that wasn't a felony, right? It's more dangerous than what Dexter did. Running a stop sign, especially running a red light, lots more dangerous, way more likely to hurt somebody than what poor old Dexter did. Not good enough for you because those aren't felonies? Okay. Have you ever been driving your vehicle while you were intoxicated? And I don't mean you were full-blown shit-housed. I'm talking about, per the law, have you ever been where your blood alcohol level would have been higher than the allowable legal amount? That is a felony, and people die all the time from drunk drivers. So are you saying that because no one was hurt, that one time you might have been drunk driving? Since nobody was hurt and you didn't get into an accident, everything is okay. Dexter didn't hurt anybody. The guns that Dexter built did not hurt anybody. So please miss me with the comments that Dexter knew he was breaking the law and should go to jail. Maybe you should go to jail for what you got away with when nobody was being hurt. These are victimless crimes. I don't think you should go to jail for that any more than Dexter should go to jail for that. I don't think that it's right, and it's a way for the federal government to not only make money, but to put people in jail to make a political statement just like they did right here with this man.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's over.